In this video, I'm going to show how I convert a fluorescent tube, it's on 120 volt AC, over to the LED tubes, which are also 120 volt AC, but they don't require the transformer or the starter. Process is pretty simple. Basically, I'm going to start by removing the transformer back here and the starter and kind of getting some of the wires out into the open. Okay, before we go any further, I'm just going to make a quick disclaimer here that I'm not explaining how to do this. This is just a tutorial on how I did it. I don't recommend you do this unless you really understand what you're doing with electricity, but first thing you're definitely going to want to do is unplug the power from the wall. Don't rely on just turning the machine off. You just never know which machines will allow the fluorescent tubes to light up when the power's off, just as advertising. So safest bet, just unplug it from the wall, and then we can start removing things. Okay, so what we need to keep here is going to be the two wires coming from the actual tube receptacles on either end. There's a white wire and a black wire. The white wire is going over to the starter. So that one we're going to clip relatively close, but close enough where you ever want to put it back. You could potentially do it if you really wanted to. And then we have the other black wire here. I'm just going to trim these so that everything's nice and equal. Keep things neat and tidy and clean. And then on this side over here, you've also got a white and a black. And then we're going to go for wire from the transformer here is going to be part of our main wire structure. So these two wires coming in on my particular machine are red and black, but they're going to be white. The black is always hot and the white is a neutral. So you just have the two connections here. One of the two connections is going to get tied together with the two leads on this side, and the other connection that you use will get tied together with the two leads on this side. This black wire over here is also coming off of the starter, so we're going to clip it. Okay, so we're left with the two unclipped here, and then if I unplug this, then we're left with the two over here on this side that we're concerned with. Okay, in my case, to make it simple, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this black lead that's on this plug over, and I'm going to connect it together with those two. And then this white wire is already connected to this side over here. So all I'm going to do is strip a little bit of this back, and I'm going to go ahead and solder and heat shrink this one on so that it's connected and tied in there. So it's kind of nice and neat. Okay, so I've got our wires stripped here. And what I'm going to do, what I always do, is put a little bit of flux on there. Just helps the solder to stick. And then we'll go ahead and tin the wires. I always tin the wires first. Okay, I've slid a little bit of heat shrink over the wire before I soldered it so I can bring it back over. If you don't do that, you kind of got to cut it, start over, desolder or whatever. So don't forget to put your heat shrink on before you bring the cables over. Okay, once the solder's on there, we know we're good and tight. We can slide our heat shrink over the top. And there's a bunch of different ways to do heat shrink. I like fire. I know that gets a little violent, but as long as you're careful, you should be good to go. So that's a nice solid, safe, secure connection there. So we'll leave that one be. Okay, on this side, I actually forgot I had to get heat shrink in there, so I can't just strip the insulation. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and cut it and do the same thing I did over there on this side. I'll just try to keep things as even as possible. Just helps keeping everything together. So we'll give it a cut. We'll cut both of them right there. Go ahead and strip this one back. I know you're not really supposed to do this, but I always like to load the solder gun up a little bit when I'm tinning wires, and then I can actually rub that on there, and the flux will help pull into it, help it pull into the wire. Nice tin wires. Clean this side up a little bit. Got her soldered on, good and strong. Slide our heat shrink down and bring out fire. Got to go at the fire with short bursts. You don't want to burn the wire. Okay, so all our connections are now complete. So what we can do is give her a test. What we're going to do is plug this back in. We'll clean up the wires here in a second. And we'll go down and plug the machine in and put a bulb in. Okay, here's a close-up, hopefully, if you can read this, of the bulb. I'm going to put these bulbs in the description down below. But these are basically what you're looking for, is something with a voltage of 120 to 220 volt AC, which is what we do in the S Plus machines. And then this happens to be a 6000. It's very strong. So then these just have little caps on the end. Yank those off. They are adjustable, so they're kind of weird to work with. I don't really like them, but they have this reflector on the back, so you kind of have to deal with it. Okay, flip the power on, and voila, instant light. Okay, so I'm going to pop the tube out real quick just because I want to wire tie things up. There are these great little clips back here that are designed to hold wire ties, and they help clean up your wires. So always clean up your wires. Keep everything as organized as possible, especially when you're dealing with electricity. Okay, and then always use flush cuts. Try to get as flat as possible. If you don't, you leave little razor blades for the next person. Okay, I'm going to return the little nuts and washers back onto the bolts that are on the back up here. Okay, clean up our space here. I'll put the glass back in and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, and here's our finished product. Looks nice, looks really bright and crisp. It's hard to tell on camera the difference on these. I've done a bunch of them. But generally the colors, they just pop with these LEDs. So the middle, this is still going to be fluorescent. I haven't changed that out yet. And the bottoms I'm not sure about. at this point. The ones that I have done, I've noticed with the LEDs there's a streak of brighter light across the front. I'll actually show you on my Game King. There you can see on this one with the LED, since it has that shade. I tried turning it up a little bit. As you can see, if I push it straight on, then it gets really bright along the middle here and dim along the sides. So I'm thinking about maybe switching that one back over to just regular fluorescent, just on the bottom glass. The top glasses, like this one here, that's all just, they look fantastic. And this one with the diamonds looks pretty good. It's really hard to tell because it's so bright. But it is brighter right along in this area here. But it looks cool with the diamonds because it actually looks like the diamonds are brighter. Okay, so the LED bulb conversion on the Money Storm is complete. Everything looks real good. I'm probably, like I said, I'm probably not going to do the bottom. I'll do this one in here. I don't need that on camera. But just a couple things to think about. Yeah, just make sure that whatever you do, you unplug the power first. And then you can use a meter and you can meter these wires just to make sure you're hooking things up in the correct way. But basically you're going to have two wires come in. One wire is going to go to one side of the bulb. The other wire is going to go to the other side of the bulb. And those two wires on the end of the bulb, you just connect those together. You can do that however you want. You can solder and heat shrink like I did. You can definitely use butt connector type things, if like car audio type stuff will work there as well. And then you can use bell caps. Bell caps a fair game. It just it kind of looks a little bit half done when you do it that way. So I would prefer crimp connectors, or obviously heat shrink. A lot more permanent, looks a lot nicer when you're finished up. So anyway, thanks for watching, and yep, do the thing. Subscribe, like, and share if possible. Thanks, guys.